For more on Nelson Mandela and his impact in South Africa, we are joined from Johannesburg by the U.S. Ambassador to South Africa, Patrick Gaspard. Thank you so much for joining us, Ambassador Gaspard. Let me get your reaction when you got the news that Nelson Mandela had passed away. Obviously, he was aged. We knew it was coming, but it still must have been a shock.
Well, thank you for having me on in this important time, Mike. Yes, there was a protracted illness, and there was an expectation, of course, that President Mandela would pass away. But still in all, somebody who has had that kind of a mark on all of our lives, it still comes as a bit of a surprise when you get to the point where that life has expired. So there was preparation for it, but still a sense of surprise in many quarters. And here in South Africa, the first few hours, there was a somber tone in the air. But now when you walk through the streets, particularly in the townships like Soweto, there's a celebratory sense as well, because people want to mark his incredible accomplishments and all that he's meant to these people.
Ambassador, take us back in time to 1990 and your first encounter with Nelson Mandela. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I can, Mike. I'm incredibly fortunate that I had occasion to first meet Nelson Mandela a short period after he had been released from his imprisonment on Robben Island. We invited him to the United States for a historic tour. He was coming to seek support, of course, for the cause of liberation in South Africa, and we all wanted to celebrate this man and send a message to the apartheid regime that the whole world was watching. So I was asked to be a part of helping to organize that tour, and I got to meet Madiba after we had a ticker tape parade for him right down the Canyon of Heroes on Broadway in Manhattan. And I was in his direct company, and I have to tell you, I was overwhelmed by the man and in complete awe, such that he spoke to me, and I think that I did not respond for 10 straight minutes because my feet could not touch the ground. He meant that much to me, and of course, meant that much to the world.
Let's go a little bit further into that, because I think I've read an episode of this where didn't he ask you for a glass of water and you were just kind of so stunned?
Oh God, yes. So you want me to embarrass myself? Yes, you want me to embarrass myself, Mike? Absolutely. Nelson Mandela looked at me and he looked a little worried, and he said, "Young man, might I trouble you for that glass of water?" And then it occurred to me that he probably had asked several times, and I was just standing and staring at him slack-jawed for probably 10 minutes. I rushed, got him the water, and darn near spilt it all over the place as I gave it to him. And so I was proud to be able to serve Madiba that glass of water, and I would have done anything if he had pressed me into his service. So I was pleased to be able to meet him then, to be in his company, to, yes, be in awe of him, but to also appreciate the humility of the man at a time when the entire world was at his feet. And then I got to meet him again when I came here to South Africa to help support the ANC in their moment of liberation.
Let me ask you about your lifetime, and you know, it's really kind of amazing. You had an opportunity to work with Jesse Jackson, who of course is linked to Martin Luther King Jr., probably one of the greatest black leaders in this country, and did so much to move the cause forward here, to meet Nelson Mandela, and then to work for President Barack Obama. That's a pretty treasured history. When you sit down with your teenage kids, what stories do you spin? What do you tell them about these incredible leaders that you've had the opportunity to work with?
When I talk to my children about it, I feel as if I'm having an out-of-body experience. It's almost surreal, but it happened because I was so invested in activism, so invested in the cause of liberation. I was a teenager in the United States when we passed the Sanctions Act. When our Congress voted to pass sanctions against the apartheid regime, I was 19 years old, and it was the first time that I really appreciated the kind of power that we all had as average citizens, and if we all came together, we could do extraordinary things to transform the world. So that defined my early activism. And that was through the leadership of Reverend Jackson, who helped me participate in early civil disobedience activities. And I have to tell you, Mike, that a few weeks ago, when I was here in Soweto with my children, and I took them to the site of the Soweto uprising, and they met middle-aged people who were themselves teenagers and active in changing this society. And I could see their awe when I took them to Robben Island and they saw where Nelson Mandela was for decades. I appreciated that history anew when I saw it through the eyes of my children, and it lifted me up with the inspiration that I need to make a modest contribution moving forward.
Nelson Mandela, of course, moved the ball forward, but the story in South Africa is an unfinished story. Is there any concern that there may be slippage in the wrong direction? I mean, what are your concerns about South Africa moving forward?
You know, I don't have that concern, and I will echo the sentiments that were expressed by Archbishop Desmond Tutu, another incredible hero, yesterday, when he said that tomorrow the sun will rise, irrespective of Madiba passing away. And so the sun will rise tomorrow for South Africans. Perhaps it's a bit dimmed because of the loss of that heroic man, but I do know that there are vibrant institutions in this country that support the democracy. There's a robust media that's asking all of the right questions. There's an engaged civil society that's animated. I spend a lot of time with young South Africans who talk to me about what they're doing to spur growth in the economy, to make certain that the education system is strong, and to make certain that there's a more broadly shared prosperity throughout South Africa. So you're right, there are challenges, and some of those challenges are absolutely acute. And the income disparity issue in particular and unemployment for young people needs to be met. However, I'm encouraged by how resilient these people are, and I am encouraged by the strength of the relationship between the United States and South Africa, and I know we'll continue to partner together to do great things.
Ambassador, we're just about out of time, but I do want to fire a couple more quick questions at you. At one point, the United States considered Nelson Mandela a terrorist. Margaret Thatcher called him that. The United States was really kind of engaged with the apartheid government, as you well know. Is it hard for you to put your arms around that concept that the United States wasn't more forthcoming in its support of Nelson Mandela?
You know something, Mike, as someone who was active in that period, I can tell you that most Americans have long considered Nelson Mandela to be a hero. We all know, of course, that much of the politics of the 80s, the 70s and 80s were all filtered through the prism of the Cold War. That was a challenging and complicated period. But as someone who agitated against my government's policies on apartheid, I will tell you that I was a rightly proud American when we passed the Sanctions Act. And South Africans know that when the Americans passed sanctions, it was decisive and helped turn the tide against apartheid. So that was a complicated period, but we came together and turned the corner.
Ambassador, thanks once again.
Thank you, Mike.